Tyler Anthony, President and CEO of Pepco, and he gonna give y'all a real speech. He gonna do something.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome. I got about 3 hours of content that I'm going to try to cover in about 20 minutes. I really appreciate it, Willie, and Melanie, when you were talking about the energy and the way you guys have worked on that and the reductions, congratulations. I think you deserve another round of applause. Thank you. She thought she was going to scoot out, but I grabbed her as she was taking care of important issues. But anyway, I'll start with an introduction, and then I wanna roast Willie a little bit as part of my off-script agenda, and then I'm gonna hit 3 areas for everybody. I'm gonna talk a little bit about an education of what defining the problem and why our electric bills are so high in capacity, and then I'm gonna move to a little bit of a conversation about your current electric bill and what makes that up. And then probably the most important slide I'll cover is, it's one thing for me to stand up here as the CEO and President of Pepco Holdings that delivers your energy, but to stand up here and say, well, that's those independent power producers that have created this problem. We all need to be mad at them, or we need to be mad at PJM. I don't think that wins the day. So my last slide is going to be about what we're doing about the problem collectively. Okay, so to start, a couple things. One, I do want to acknowledge Jack, Ashley, Jessica, Board of Trade folks. One of the things I'm very proud to serve right now as the chair of the Board of Trade. And when you make decisions about where you spend your time, it was clear to me that what I like about the Board of Trade is they bring us collectively to real discussions on the real challenges facing our area. And this is one of the biggest, in my opinion. And I think the fact that the Board of Trade convenes us is important. And the content for today is important. But more importantly, the connections like I made here already the first hour I'm here. I think, Jack, I built 2 nuclear plants while I was out getting a coffee this morning. But point being is, Willie talked about partnerships and the collective importance of partnerships. And I'd argue what makes partnerships successful, frankly, is a level of trust. And the only way you establish a level of trust, and you see the camaraderie in here amongst all of you, is the fact that when you spend time together, we move into respecting each other. And then after respect, we move to trust. And collectively in partnerships, when you have trust, there's nothing we can't accomplish. Okay, and I wanted to give a shout out. I got a couple big shots for Pepco in the room today. I have Amber Perry, the regional president for Pepco, and I also have Valencia McClure. She's the government regulatory external affairs senior vice president for both Pepco and BG&E. So thank you guys both for being here. Okay, and I have Ann Clace. I got some of our biggest rock stars. So when you guys get opportunities, please do introductions. But really quick, a story about Willie. So I've been at Pepco now for 10 years. I was running Chicago and Northern Illinois. I've been running Chicago and Northern Illinois' electric system before I got asked to come out here as part of the 2016 merger where Exelon purchased Pepco Holdings. I came out as the lead for the transition. And a quick show of hands, excuse me, how many people in here have been living in this area for greater than 10 years? Greater than 10 years. Wow, okay. What a great area. You guys don't decide to stay. But the reason I asked that is, and this is going to be my Willie story, is the fact that back in 2014, 2016, Pepco Holdings was in some cases rated the worst utility in the United States, and some publications, business journals, and some others had us the worst company in the United States. Does anybody remember when the lights didn't stay on? So, Willie came in as the Washington, D.C. chair of the Utility Commission. It was right around the time that I had just arrived. In my first few months here, we knocked out the Federal Reserve for 2 weeks. We had a series of hotel groups that were out of power downtown. And I remember saying to my wife as we moved out from Chicago, I said, "Hun," I said, "how are those 529 plans doing? Because I may not make it here very long." So and the reason I bring up Willie, so Willie was the chair of the commission, and we had a significant substation event in July at a substation we refer to as Florida Avenue. In the hottest month of July, we had a major fire transformer event, and we took 20,000 DC residents out of power for almost a week in a hot July week, okay? So fast forward, you know, and I come on board, I'm coming from Chicago, we're trying to figure out, okay, what investments are we gonna do and how are we gonna dig ourselves out of this poor performance? So I go to a hearing. It's a hearing that I'm going in front of Willie and the commission to talk about the Florida Avenue event and what in the heck happened that we had, because it gets very serious. That substation feeds several hospitals. Like when you think about power, you know, power is responsible for 5% of the GDP in this country, but I'd argue it enables the other 95% of the GDP. So there I am testifying about what happened. You know, I had been there a short period of time, and I'm talking about what happened, and I'll never forget what Willie said to me when I was done my testimony. He said to me, he said, Tyler, he said, you're our utility. What can this commission do to help you? And that's a true statement. You probably don't remember it, Willie. I get a little choked up about it because it was right then that I said, we're going to go far. So under his leadership and that trust and partnership, fast forward, last year Pepco Holdings was #2 in the country for reliability. So thank you for your partnership, Willie. I could talk about FERC and the different leadership positions you've had there, but it's an honor always to share the stage with you. Okay. So I'm gonna go into the first slide. I'm gonna shape up the problem right now. So what I'll start with is a little bit of an education. The United States is broken up into 7 what we call RTOs, Regional Transmission Operators. We are a part of a regional transmission operator known as PJM. It essentially takes care of 13 states and 65 million Americans. That PJM RTO basically takes the power plants and delivers it through the lines that we maintain and those other 13 states to provide electricity for the consumer, okay? The way they set pricing on that is through an annual auction. Set the stage a little bit for that annual auction. 3 years ago, you pay for that in what they form as what they call it a megawatt day. 3 years ago, we were paying about $27, $29 a megawatt day. Currently paying $331, over 1,000% increase. Later on, you'll be hearing from Governor Moore and Jack. Governor Moore, in combination with Governor Shapiro and some others, created policy with PJM to put a cap on the top side of that market in PJM that set the price at $330. And without that cap, it would have been closer to $500. So think about that, 500 from 30, okay? So what we'll talk about is, we'll talk about, start from the left, increased demand. The best example of that is just last week. This PJM, I'll talk in the terms of gigawatts. A gigawatt can feed about 800,000 homes. Last week, the PJM, 13 states, we used 162 gigawatts of energy to get through that week. It was a 10-year high max that we've ever had. The reason that's important, and I'll give you an analogy similar to a Costco parking lot. Costco parking lot has 500 spaces in it. Monday, 50 cars, Tuesday, 60 cars, Thursday, 10 cars, but Saturday morning, you need all 500 spaces. So we have to build the grid similarly for the 500 spaces. Okay, so when you hear about that demand at 162 gigawatts, we got to build a system that when we're all needing it the most, it can handle that. Okay, so the demand last week was that significant. The PJM also likes to operate with what we call a 20% reserve. They like 20% extra in case a power plant trips off, a line comes down. So for the July week, that 162, we only had 5 gigawatts of excess capacity. We were essentially on the borderline of brownouts, rolling brownouts to major cities within that PJM footprint. Only 2 things saved us. One was they mandatorily told these data centers, you have to run your backup generation. And we had what we call demand response programs that asked users to curtail how much energy they were using. Without those two vehicles and with that margin, we are essentially out of power in our area, okay? I'm not trying to draw like this gloom and doom situation. I'm just trying to share some of the facts of the problem with everyone. Okay, moving across, data center growth. I think Willie said it well. We have to come to grips. You know, I was told this by a large data center developer in the country. The average person that has the cell phone, and we all know our faces are in that thing 3 and 4 hours a day, if not more. Average person that doesn't work behind a computer goes in and out of a data center every day on average 1,000 times. If you have a computer job and you're working technically with a computer all day, average worker that works behind a terminal goes in and out of a data center 10,000 times a day. And then when you think about our country's defense and others, and the fact that we need to onshore this technology for various defense issues, et cetera, we have to figure it out. And unfortunately, in our communities, a lot of vilification to those data centers right now for good reasons. I mean, there's arguments to both sides, but nonetheless, we have to solve that. And those of you in the room, I don't think we were talking about data centers 3 years ago. So here we are. Okay? Some of those data centers, I talk about a gigawatt being 800,000 people and 162. In some states, we're tripling the current amount of power just through data centers. It's massive. Okay? Data center growth, and then over here, plant retirements. That same PJM footprint, we have a lot of old fossil clunkers in PJM, a lot of coal plants. So since 2013 to today, we've retired about 40 gigawatts of power, and another 25 gigawatts are set to retire by 2030. So not only are we using a lot more because of us, heat, et cetera, then we have data centers, and now we're taking off the grid a lot of power. Few local examples. We took the last power plants off in the state of New Jersey in 2015 in Logan and Chambers. Last year in the state of Delaware, we took off Indian River, and in Maryland, they just announced the closing of Brandon Shores. And for those of us that live in the district, the 2 power plants there have been shut down many years ago. DC imports 100% of its power. New Jersey's about half, Maryland's about half, and Delaware's about half. So the jurisdictions I serve are major importers from other states, which also hits that price demand significantly. Okay, and then last, new generation. I'm a big all of the above requirement kind of guy. Big all of the above. What occurred over time is the generation came off, demand went up, and we were very committed to renewables. And renewables are great. However, they can't get enough and come on fast enough even to replace those big coal plants that shut down. So you can see the perfect storm. You can see the perfect storm. We'll go to the next slide. So now, what does the outcome of that? I'll talk about it in financial terms, and then I'm going to talk about it in reliability terms. And I hit that a little bit when you think about that reserve margin. Okay, so PJM in the last few days here just had their last auction, and remember I said they like to keep that 20% reserve. So PJM goes out to all the independent power producers and says, I need X gigawatts. They fell short. They were only able to get about a 14% cushion. So we don't even have enough power plants running today to keep a reserve margin that's deemed reasonable in our PJM footprint. But now you can take a look at the dollar bill behind me. And so when you're paying that electric bill, and and I talked about trust, and I think one of the things that sincerely bothers me on a daily basis is we spent 10 years building trust with our Pepco customers, with you all, with businesses, not only in what we did on outcomes, but who we did it with, how we did it. We put a lot of heart into this. But these bills have eroded that trust significantly. And as you guys see in the press and all, we're like the bad guys. Because I give you the bill. Many people don't even fully appreciate supply and what are you talking. All I care about, Tyler, is my $150 bill is $300 and I can't afford it. Real issues out there. So you can take a look behind me. It's pretty self-explanatory. But when you think about that dollar, every dollar you pay on your bill, from the transmission and the surcharges, I'm getting about, what you can just do the math there, 33-ish cents on that electric bill. And you can see how much of it is on those independent power producers. Okay? So, continuing on, I'll close. I'm going to spend my last portion of my time on this next slide. And what you'll see here is, so Tyler, what can you do about it as a wires business? What are you doing in order to try to help the situation that we're in? And there's really 4 key areas that we're compelled to. I work for Calvin Butler, the CEO of Exelon, and I'll tell you, we're lucky we're lucky that he's running our company because of what we'll call our Exelon promise. That says our customers depend on us. So whether or not it's our direct responsibility or not, we're going to make a difference. So as I talk about this slide in the 4 areas, I want you to think about the Exelon promise. Let's start first, adding new power to the grid. You'd say, well, Tyler, you don't own power plants at all. Well, what we're trying to do on solar, we have, in the jurisdictions I'm responsible for, remember, 1 gig, 800,000 homes, we have 2 gigawatts of installed solar, we have another gigawatt in construction, and my job with those developers is when they say, I want to come to Prince George's, or I want to come to Montgomery, or I'm in DC, our job is to roll the red carpet out and connect all that stuff the best we can and as quick as we can so the developers want to build that solar here. First one. Second one, battery storage. I talked about that parking lot. See, we are also committed that some large battery systems can take that energy. Like you heard all that solar, we're getting less than 20-25% benefit of that solar because the sun is big at 1, but at 5, when you guys are all home drinking your cold wine and turning on the air, it doesn't line up. So we can install large battery systems that can literally shave off, remember, when the parking lot gets full, I can shave off parking spots to save over $100 million in cases of some certain battery systems depending on we located it. So right now, we're aggressively saying, we'll build these battery systems and let's see what we can do to drive these bills down. And what I like about battery systems is this is a 1 to 3 year with the appropriate approvals to get it done. Okay? Next one, constructing large power plants. So Calvin Butler has been clear with us as leaders of the company that if these independent companies won't build power plants, we will. We don't want to build them. We're not in the business of building them, but we're not going to sit here and just keep meandering the issue about resource adequacy, that if a state or a jurisdiction wants us to build a power plant, we'll build it well, we'll build it cheaper, and we'll do it. And there's an argument, does that leverage? Because the independent guys, if there are any in the room, like I know you don't like us about that, but it's just about we got to get moving. We got to stop talking. Listen to what I just said about last week. Okay? All right, and continuing on, I'll move to, I'm going to move down to the left. Utility operational excellence. You know, I bragged a little bit about the reliability. The real question for myself and the other Pepco employees in the room is, how do I keep that same reliability, #2 in the country, and how do I do it for 20% less cost? That's the new challenge. I got to drive my cost out of my business. Now, I'm an operator by trade, nuclear engineer by background, and I will tell you, if it's up to Tyler, I'm freaking replacing everything, okay? That's just my demeanor. But you wouldn't want my electric bill, but you have one hell of a system. I'm a nuclear engineer by profession. Now, I share that because, now imagine you're sitting there and you're in our shoes and you have a substation that's 100 years old, and it's $300 million to replace. Or you got a transformer, a large transformer, feeding some critical area downtown that's 40 years old, but it's $3 million. You're always asking yourself, can I get another 2 years out of that baby? Let's go put a little bit of wax on it. Let's see if we can, change that oil again. But these are the issues we're facing. And what I worry about, because today's top 3 priorities in my world is affordability, affordability, affordability. And I don't want to go back to my pre-Willie days. I don't want to go back to that. And there's balance in everything, but we have to be careful, okay? And then anything else on there? Oh, demand response, talked about that a little bit, where we have, like, this is, demand response is basically where we ask you guys, hey, on that hot August day, can you take that air conditioning from 72 and maybe bump it up to 78 for us for that 4 or 5 hours? Can anyone be a part and help us with that? And we'll give you some dollars off on your bill to help us with demand response. And then this last one, which I'm spending a lot of time in, is what can I do with the current grid and stuff that customers paid for and get more out of it? Where you don't spend another dollar, but you hold me accountable to get more out of it. As an example, technology. You know, the little meter sits on the side of your house. There's technology now where they're loading apps into these meters to help you manage your electric bill, help me that I don't have to drive trucks for line voltages and low voltage faults and different things. But bottom line is, how do I get more out of the existing things that you all have paid for? Okay? Then I move over to customer support, number 3 here. We created a new bill design. I was told a stat that depressed me the other day. The average person in here looks at your electric bill and deals with us as a company on average 12 minutes a year. I want you guys to increase that. All right, just think about that. 12 minutes a year you give us, and we're one of the most critical assets we do for you. It's just because, I think Willie pointed out, like the lights come on most of the time. It's one thing you hopefully don't have to worry about, okay? But my account, if any of you are signed up for that, I'll tell you what you're spending by day. I'll be like that email in there like, ooh, how am I doing against my neighbors? Oh, you spent $14 today. Because the best kilowatt, and I was giving Melanie some credit, is one we don't use. Like, the one we don't use is the best one, okay? And then Customer Relief Fund, this was Calvin saying, you know what, it's not our issue, but we're gonna take shareholder dollars, about 60 million of it, and we're just gonna give it to customers that are struggling. Let's do it through nonprofits, and let's just help, because customers are struggling. That was our Customer Relief Fund. And then last, regulatory and legislatively, I can't say enough about Governor Moore. One of the reasons I think Jack, you know, good relationship, he's gonna be on stage, is because he's active in this. Best compliments I could give Governor Moore is, I've been in his office no less than 4 times under one question. What can we do together to make this better? You see some of the programs I listed up there. The most recent one is for low to moderate income, we're doing a program as a function of your total earnings to your energy bill to never be more than 6% of what you make. That's all Governor Moore leadership, a lot of stuff there. And then I'll give you one in here, DC, again, as I turn and look at Willie. DC Solar for All. Best way to help low income, think about if they're a portion of solar getting benefits every month. I think DC's program might be one of the best in the country where a portion of solar installations are earmarked for low income, and it has reduced bills in some cases for low income up to 50% a month. Okay, so I'll close with this and summarize. Big picture. What are you doing to get more supply? What are you doing with the existing grid and managing your own costs? What are you doing around customer and education and getting them involved? And then lastly, how are you working with your stakeholders to create policy that helps drive the right behaviors? One of the things that frustrates me personally the most is when you think about that cost from 29 to 330, customers have gotten zero for that money. Customers have gotten zero. We didn't build 10 power plants. We didn't do X, Y, and Z. Customers are paying all that money and not getting $1 of benefit. And that's wrong. Okay? So with that, I want to end on a high note. Commander Stadium, I can talk about all kind of great stuff. But let me introduce the panel. Was that interesting, guys? I'm looking around. I hope I didn't bore you guys. You can clap a lot. You guys can clap a lot. I'm teasing.